Today, we uncover the 5 tea brands the UK should be warning about, companies bleaching their products white to make them look more appealing, and tea bags so full of dust and fannings that calling it a cup of tea is starting to feel generous. For most of us, tea isn't just a drink, it's a ritual, a daily habit woven into British life for generations, a moment of comfort, clarity, or calm. But slowly, quietly, without most people ever realizing, that ritual has been taken away from us. What was once a simple, wholesome brew has become an industrial product, engineered, processed, and packaged in ways our grandparents would never recognize. And the worst part, many of us still assume we're drinking the same teas Britain grew up on. But it wasn't always like this. Tea in the UK used to be whole leaf brewed slowly in real pots, strained by hand, and enjoyed the way nature intended. No bleach or paper, no heat-sealed polymers, no bags packed with ultrafine dust designed to brew in 20 seconds. Just leaves, water, time, and a flavour that developed naturally. Compare that to today. Most supermarket tea bags are a blend of microscopic particles, leftovers from multiple countries, and materials that interact with boiling water long before the tea itself does. And the companies know something they don't want you to realize. If you understood how simple tea used to be and how easy it still is to brew it the old way, you might never go back to their packaged blends again. So they work hard to keep the modern system in place. Fast brew dust leftovers sourced from multiple countries, overprocessed leaves, bags treated to look cleaner and whiter than the tea inside, convenience over quality, presentation over tradition, appearance over health. Now, we're not saying all tea bags are bad, far from it. But as we go through this investigation, do yourself a favor and just make sure your favorite brew isn't on this list. Number 1. Twinings. A name so old and established that most of us treat it as a mark of certainty. The brand has a royal warrant, a storefront on the Strand dating back to the 1700s, and packaging that feels traditional, elegant, and trustworthy. But behind that heritage image sits something most shoppers never think about: the bright, pure white tea bags themselves. They don't look that way naturally. Twinings uses an oxygen bleaching process on its tea bag paper to achieve that spotless, uniform look. It isn't chlorine-based, but it's still a deliberate whitening treatment done purely for presentation, because unbleached tea paper looks darker, more textured, and less clean. And in today's supermarket aisle, appearance sells faster than authenticity. But the one question we all need to be asking is, which one of us asked for washing powder white tea bags in the first place? I'd much prefer to see the real colour without anything from the bleaching process finding its way into my cup. Some would say it's like they make all the decisions without a care for what we end up putting into our bodies. According to them, the crisp white bag gives the impression of a high-purity product. But they can't hide the fact that what's inside tells a completely different story. Twinings. Everyday, the blend most people buy without thinking twice, isn't made from whole leaves like the company's historical image might suggest. It's made from very fine fannings, tiny fragments created during the tea leaf sorting process. These pieces brew quickly and provide colour fast, but they also lose the complexity, aroma, and subtlety that made British tea what it once was. Fannings are efficient for mass production, not for flavour. They create a cup that's consistent and strong, but not necessarily rich or nuanced. Even the construction of the bag itself is different. Twinings often uses stitched bags with cotton thread folded and pressed for speed and uniformity. It's a modern industrial process that has little in common with the handcrafted brewing traditions that built the Twinings name centuries ago. Because when Twinings first began, their tea wasn't sold in bags at all. It was sold loose, whole leaves stored in metal canisters, weighed out by hand in tea shops. Customers could see the leaves, smell them, judge their quality with their own eyes. Brewing tea meant warming a pot, adding whole leaves, and letting them steep slowly before straining. There were no bleached papers, no stitched bags, no heat-sealed fibers, and no fast brew particles engineered for convenience. Tea was a slow ritual, inseparable from quality. Today, the heritage remains on the box, but the product has evolved into a fast brew, supermarket-friendly version of what tea used to be. The everyday blend most people drink is far removed from the slow whole-leaf brewing Britain once knew. Number 2. PG Tips. A household name, a staple in millions of kitchens, and one of the brands many people picture when they think of a proper British brew. For decades, PG Tips built its reputation on strength, familiarity, and reliability. But in recent years, shoppers across the UK have noticed something different about their daily cup, and it starts with the bag itself. PG Tips made headlines when it switched to 100% plant-based bags, replacing polypropylene with a corn-derived material called PLA. On the surface, this sounds like progress. Greener packaging, better sustainability. But what most shoppers don't realise is that PLA doesn't break down in normal home compost. It needs industrial-level heat for proper breakdown, meaning that for the average household, the new bags behave almost exactly the same as the old ones. They don't disappear, they just look better on paper. And for many loyal drinkers, the change hasn't just been about the bag. The taste itself shifted. Reviews poured in saying the same thing. PG Tips didn't brew the way it used to. Cups felt weaker, flatter, or inconsistent, even when brewed the same way. Some people reported needing 2 bags instead of 1. Others said the colour developed quickly, but the flavour lagged behind, strong on the surface but thin underneath. This makes sense when you understand how the tea inside is built. PG Tips relies heavily on extremely fine tea particles full of fannings and dust, the cheapest leftovers. These fragments brew fast, producing strong colour in seconds, but at the cost of depth. Whole leaves release flavour slowly. Dust releases everything at once. It gives punch, not complexity. For a long time, this worked because the pyramid bag allowed more movement. But as the bag design changed and blends were adjusted for uniformity and volume, the cup changed too. What made PG Tips iconic wasn't convenience, it was the familiar flavour people grew up with. But today, the ritual has been streamlined into a fast brew product built for consistency, not character. The bag changed, the blend changed, and the cup changed with it. Number 3. Asda Everyday Tea Bags. On paper, they should be the safe, no-frills choice. The kind of thing you buy in bulk, throw in the cupboard, and forget about. And for years, that's how many shoppers used them. People trusted them. Some reviewers say they'd been buying them for years, even decades. But recent reviews reveal something has clearly changed, and it isn't just a one-off batch. It's a pattern. The one loud theme is simple. The bags don't hold. Over and over, long-time buyers say the bags split as soon as boiling water hits them, or with the slightest stir, or even while sitting in the cup. Some say half the box goes straight in the bin. Others say it takes 3 or 4 attempts just to get one drinkable cup. One reviewer joked they might as well be sold as loose leaf. Another called them dissolving tea bags because the moment water is added, the bag gives up. And this isn't one angry comment, it's dozens saying the same thing. Used to be great, now they constantly burst. But the more you read, the more you realise this isn't just about mess. When a bag splits, you're not just brewing tea, you're drinking the contents in a way you weren't supposed to. Reviewers talk about cups full of mud, grit and grey dust floating on top. Some say they get a mouthful of leaves at the bottom or have to stop halfway because of the sludge collecting there. One compared it to backwash. And the uncomfortable truth is that if your everyday tea bags are regularly bursting, there's a good chance you're swallowing far more of the tiny particles and dust than you'd ever choose to. Then there's the flavour. Many reviewers say it used to taste strong and reliable, but now swings between weak, tasteless or oddly off, herb-like, chemical, rubbery, or simply like hot water with milk. Some now need 2 bags just to get any taste. Others threw whole boxes away because they couldn't finish even 1 cup. A few mention something supermarkets hate hearing. They switched from big brands like PG Tips or Tetley to save money, and now they're switching back, not because of price, but because Asda's bags are no longer fit for purpose. Together, the message is blunt. These weren't always bad, but something has changed. The paper, the seams, the blend, or the cost-cutting. And shoppers are left with cups full of dust, wasted kettles, and the uneasy feeling that they're drinking more of the bag than the brew. Number 4. Tetley. One of the biggest names in British tea, a brand woven into daily routines for generations. Tetley has always marketed itself as familiar, reliable, and down-to-earth, the kind of tea your parents drank and your grandparents drank. But look closely at how Tetley builds its tea bags, and the story becomes less comforting. Tetley publicly states something most shoppers never noticed. Their tea bags are not fully plastic-free. They're about 99% biodegradable, which sounds impressive until you ask what the final 1% is. That tiny fraction is the heat seal layer that holds the bag together. It's a small amount of polymer, but without it, the bag would fall apart in boiling water. And Tetley produces these bags on an enormous scale, tens of millions every day. So while 1% plastic sounds small across the entire country's tea habit, it becomes a stream of microparticles entering hot water again and again. People never think about it because for decades, tea bags were assumed to be just paper. But Tetley's own statements confirm there's still plastic keeping the seams intact. Inside the bag, Tetley uses blends built for speed and consistency. The everyday products rely heavily on small tea particles rather than whole leaves. They brew quickly, give fast color, and create a predictable taste whether you make 1 cup or 100. It's efficient, it's reliable, and it's the backbone of Tetley's brand. But efficiency comes at a cost. When leaves are processed into tiny fragments, the flavor profile changes. The ritual becomes faster, but the depth disappears. Tetley sources tea from a vast global network of plantations. While the company promotes sustainability partnerships, the blends themselves are built for volume, not craftsmanship. The tea travels long distances, sits in storage, gets blended and reblended for uniformity, and ends up in a plastic-sealed paper bag meant to brew in under a minute. Tetley still carries comfort in its branding, but the cup today is a product of industrial-scale efficiency, not the slower, simpler tea culture Britain once knew. And while most people never question the bag's materials, Tetley's own admission about that last 1% is something worth remembering. Number 5. Yorkshire Tea. The one brand people defend with their whole personality. Yorkshire Tea isn't just a drink, it's an identity. It's the brand people swear by, take abroad and argue about online. For many, it's the gold standard of a proper brew. And that's exactly why this one stings. Because behind the cozy marketing, behind the rolling hills on the box and the promise of a proper Yorkshire brew, Yorkshire Tea has more in common with the big industrial brands than loyal drinkers realize. Let's start with the bag. Yorkshire Tea has been under pressure for years to ditch plastic, and while they've moved toward plant-based materials, many of their bags still rely on older polypropylene sealing. That means every time you brew with an older batch, you're releasing microscopic particles you never intended to drink, not from the paper, but from the sealing glue. And given Yorkshire Tea's massive popularity, that adds up to millions of cups brewed this way daily. But the bag is only the beginning. Yorkshire Tea's reputation rests on the idea of craftsmanship, a proper blend, carefully sourced using the best leaves. Yet their supply chain draws from the same enormous international plantations that supply nearly every other mass-market tea. Their blends come from Kenya, Assam, and Sri Lanka. And while that sounds exotic, several investigations have highlighted concerns around working conditions in those regions, including low pay, overwork and exposure to agricultural chemicals. Yorkshire Tea says they audit suppliers, but when you source tea on a global scale big enough to supply millions of boxes, oversight becomes complicated and quality becomes stretched. Then there's the blend. People say Yorkshire Tea is strong, but strength doesn't always mean higher quality leaves. A strong brew can simply mean more small leaf particles, more fannings, and a darker, more forceful cup designed to impress quickly. It's engineered reliability, not necessarily heritage craftsmanship. Yorkshire Tea's special editions tell the same story. Their biscuit brew tastes like biscuits without containing any biscuits. Their hard water brew is essentially a darker, dustier blend meant to overpower mineral-heavy water. And while the branding leans heavily on Yorkshire tradition, the truth is simple. The tea isn't grown in Yorkshire. It's blended and packaged there. The leaves come from the same global commodity system driving every other supermarket tea. Yorkshire Tea still feels familiar, comforting, and nostalgic, but the tea in your cup today is a product of industrial blending, long-distance sourcing, and plastic-sealed bags, not the romantic story printed on the box.